A huge fight is breaking out in the Formula One paddock over the new 2026 engines. And at the centre of it all is the Mercedes team. While Mercedes is trying to make everyone believe that they're struggling, their rivals are sure that the German team has found a clever trick that gives them a huge and possibly unfair power advantage. This situation has now become a massive political battle with accusations, secret meetings and even threats of a boycott of the first race of the season, creating a tense and uncertain atmosphere just before the new season begins. The whole argument is about something called the engine's compression ratio, which is basically how much the engine squeezes the fuel and air before it explodes to create power. A higher number here usually means more power. The FIA, which makes the rules for F1, sets a limit of 16-1 for all the new 2026 engines. This rule was a deal to get new car companies like Audi and Ford to join the sport. But the rules only say that this measurement has to be taken when the engine is cool in the garage. The rules say nothing about checking the engine when it's hot and running on the track. This is the loophole that Mercedes has reportedly used. It is believed their new engine is built to pass the test in the garage, but when it gets hot on the track, the compression ratio goes up to 18-1. That, of course, would give them a very big advantage, with some people saying it could be worth 2 or 3 tenths of a second on every single lap, which is a massive amount of time in Formula One. So the other teams are very angry about this. A big group has now formed against Mercedes, with Ferrari, Honda, Audi and even Red Bull all working together. They are pushing the FIA to change the rules and add a new test that would check the engines when they're hot. So this has led to many tense meetings between all the teams and the people in charge of the sport. The problem is so big now that a final decision is expected at a very important F1 Commission meeting next week. This meeting is happening right before the March 1st deadline, when all the engine designs must be finalised. The other teams feel that Mercedes has not played fair, even if they have not technically broken any written rule, because everyone has agreed to the 16-1 limit. While this big fight is happening, Mercedes and their driver George Russell have been playing a very smart game with the media. Instead of talking about their possible advantage, they've been doing the opposite by trying to point the finger at their biggest rival, Red Bull. After the first few days of testing, George Russell said that the test was a reality check for Mercedes and that Red Bull was the team to beat. He even said that Red Bull's performance was scary and that their engine had a huge advantage of half a second to a second per lap. This, of course, is a classic trick to try and move the attention away from themselves. By saying Red Bull is the best, Mercedes hopes to make their own performance look a bit less special and then take the pressure off. They want everyone to think that they're the ones trying to catch up, while they might actually be the ones with a secret weapon. Red Bull, however, is not being fooled by this game. Their technical director, Pierre Wash, responded to the claims from Mercedes by saying, "I don't agree with that. Maybe it's a game that some competitors are doing." Red Bull understands that Mercedes is playing mind games and is not afraid to say it publicly. This argument between the two top teams makes the whole situation even more dramatic. It's like a game of poker where each team is trying to bluff the other one to get a mental advantage before the season even starts. Charles Leclerc from Ferrari has also said that he's sure Mercedes is hiding how fast they really are. He explained that the new 2026 cars give teams many more ways to hide their true speed compared to the old cars. This does prove that the other drivers are not believing Mercedes' story about being slow. They've seen enough to know that Mercedes is a team that should never be counted out. The fight has now gotten so serious that there have even been threats of a boycott. Some reports say that Mercedes has warned that if the FIA changes the rules to stop their engine trick, they might refuse to race at the first Grand Prix in Australia. That, of course, would be a terrible situation for Formula One, because it would also mean their customer teams, Williams, Aston Martin and McLaren, would also not race. A season opening race with only 7 teams would be a huge embarrassment for the sport, especially now that it's more popular than ever. This threat does show how serious the situation is and also how much Mercedes wants to keep their advantage. Behind the scenes, the political games are just as intense. An F1 journalist named Ralph Bark has reported that Toto Wolff's claim that the engine trick is only worth a tiny 2 to 3 horsepower is seen as a complete joke by people who actually work inside Mercedes. Those insiders have apparently said that the real advantage is much bigger. Toto Wolff has also accused the other teams of sending secret letters to the FIA and having secret meetings to try and change the rules. He says the other teams are just scared of being embarrassed by how fast Mercedes is. This fight with words shows just how much the top teams don't trust each other. Both sides are accusing the other of cheating, and the FIA is stuck in the middle now trying to find a fair solution. Ferrari is trying to be more helpful. Even though they are against what Mercedes is doing, they've said that they will not officially protest the team at the first race. They just want the FIA to make the rules clear for everyone. Ferrari has even designed a new tool that could be used to test the engines when they are hot and has offered that to the FIA. But they also admit that this might not be a perfect fix because teams could still find ways to cool their engines down before the test happens. This goes to show how complicated the problem is and how hard it's going to be to find an answer that keeps everyone happy. So what is going to happen then? Well, the F1 Commission meeting next week is the most important event right now. To change the rules, a supermajority vote is needed, which means 4 of the 5 engine makers, plus the FIA and the company that owns F1, all have to agree. Now that Red Bull has joined Ferrari, Honda and Audi against Mercedes, the German team is in a weak position. If the vote goes against them, they'll have to change their engine design just before the season starts, which would be a big problem for them. If the vote goes the other way, the other teams will be very angry, and at the start of the season could be a bit of a mess of protests and legal fights. The FIA has an impossible job trying to keep all the teams happy and avoiding a big war. The next few days will be full of secret talks and deals as the teams fight for every little bit of advantage. The fight for the 2026 championship has already started, not on the track but in the meeting rooms of the sport. The best proof of Mercedes' real speed came on the final day of testing. After 2 days of saying that they were slow and pointing at Red Bull, Mercedes suddenly showed amazing speed. The 1-2 finish was a big message to everyone and made their earlier claims of being slow look silly. It was a perfect example of a team hiding their speed until the last minute, a trick called sandbagging. This fast performance, along with the rumours about their engine, has made many people in the paddock believe that Mercedes is the team to beat, no matter what they say. Max Verstappen's role in this is also very interesting. The world champion has complained a lot about the new 2026 cars, but he's also said that Mercedes is using diversion tactics to move the attention away from themselves. We should also remember that Max had talks with Mercedes last year about possibly joining their team, so it's very likely that during those talks he learned a lot about their plans for 2026. This secret information could be why he does not believe their story about being behind Red Bull. He knows what they can do and he's not being fooled by their mind games. The performance of the other teams that use Mercedes engines does also give us some clues. Williams, for example, had a very good and reliable test, driving many laps without problems. McLaren had a test with both good and bad moments, with some fast runs but also some car problems. If the Mercedes engine was as good as some people think, you'd expect all the teams using it to be at the top of the timesheets. The fact that they're not shows that the situation is a lot more complex. It could be that the engine trick only works perfectly when it's matched with the right car design, which is something the main Mercedes team would of course be best at, or it could be that the other teams are also hiding their true speed, waiting for the first race to show what they can really do. This whole situation is a perfect example of the complicated and exciting world of Formula One, where amazing engineering, great driving and smart strategy all come together. The fight over the Mercedes engine is not just about a rule, it's about power, money and the deep desire to win. The teams are always pushing the limits of the rules to find any small advantage. The FIA is always trying to control them to make sure that the competition is fair and the drivers are all in the middle middle of it, trying to understand everything while trying to get ready for a new season. The next few weeks will decide what happens with this engine fight. The F1 Commission meeting will be a big showdown between Mercedes and all the other teams. Their decision will have a huge effect on the 2026 season. Will Mercedes get to keep their advantage, or will the FIA change the rules? Will the first race just be a mess of protests, or will the teams find a way to agree? One thing is certain, the drama in Formula One is not just on the track. The fight for the championship is happening everywhere you look, and this engine problem is just the newest part of that story. As fans, we can only watch and wait and see how this big game of chess will end. The road to the 2026 championship is already full of surprises, and the season hasn't even started yet. The mind games, the accusations, and the political fights are all part of what makes Formula One so interesting. It's a sport where what happens off the track is just as important as what happens on it. And as this engine fight shows, the battle to be the best in Formula One never stops. The deadline of March the 1st for the engine designs to be finalised is adding a huge amount of pressure to the situation. After this date, no major changes can be made to the core design of the engines for several years. So this is why the other teams are now pushing so hard to get the rules changed before this deadline. If they wait until after the deadline, it may be too late. Mercedes will be able to use their engine trick for years to come, and the other teams will be stuck trying to catch up. This is why the F1 Commission meeting is just so important. It is the last chance for the teams to make their case and try to influence the future of the sport. The decision made at that meeting will have long-lasting consequences, and it will determine the balance of power in Formula One for the next era. We'll see you soon.